Hey everybody, today I was kind of thinking about the existence of gimmick accounts. Gimmick accounts have not been exactly the most newest thing in the world, but it's been here for so long that people are kind of just accepted it as like another facet of having to use the internet. We're now basically in a time where engagement is almost about as precious as diamonds, and people have kind of just decided to make gimmick accounts as a kind of an excuse to just make something worthwhile of the site that they're kind of using. They're basically challenging themselves to at least kind of just stick with like one little bit or just a shtick in general and just see how long they can do it before they just inevitably quit. And I've always been kind of thinking about it for a while, and also just been exploring mostly just like Twitter sometimes because I am an eternally online person. And that's how that'd be a kind of an interesting idea to kind of just explore gimmick accounts entirely and just seeing what we can find out of it. To the 3 or 5 people that don't know what a gimmick account is, it's basically what they used to call back in the day a parody profile. They are meant to impersonate or mock of a wide range of topics, celebs, public figures, cartoon characters, corporations, or objects. You would think that this would be happening somewhere during like COVID, but it has existed much more early on, since in like March 2006. The earliest known account on Twitter that was kind of just the foundation for all gimmick accounts in general was @FakeSteveJobs. The account is still up to this day with 36k followers, but it hasn't really posted anything since like July 31st, 2010. The spread would continue as many people were doing the parody profile thing, which started out to get a lot of these accounts popular, with one humorous case of being that in October 7, 2008, the science fiction blog of IO9 or Gizmodo published a roundup of parody accounts titled Twitter Me This, Our Favorite Fake Twitter Feeds, showing and writing about these accounts, and it would happen again in February 15, 2009, when PC World will publish a post titled 15 Fake and Funny Twitter Accounts, showing accounts that have mock celebs like Chuck Norris, Nick Nolte, or William Shatner. And since this was kind of the beginning of like these parody accounts just kind of making the rise, a little bit of misinformation happened on June 27, 2010. The Daily Mail reported that Steve Jobs had announced that Apple had recalled the iPhone 14, signing a tweet of, you guessed it, of a parody account that was pretending to be Steve Jobs. The Daily Mail was not the only one that ended up getting tricked on this. The Guardian, CNET, Ecosystem, and the Net Web all realized heavily that they made a big mistake and were about to kind of have to undo most of it. While these accounts very much had a lot of influence from the look of it, like all things in the internet, most end up having to fade away, either because they lost interest in engaging with the site, or that the accounts weren't exactly culturally relevant anymore. In fact, when looking into most of these, some of them have changed their username, have long since deleted their accounts, or the articles that were talking about them are no longer up. But on the date of June 6, 2009, and this will be very important, the Twitter co-founder at the time, Biz Stone, announced on Twitter's official blog that they would roll out what would be known as the Verification System Service, aka the checkmarks. As a side note, there are some old accounts that have been active for a very long while. The 2 of them, at least I'd say, that are still active to this day, are people like Drill/Wins, a user that is best known for his peculiar style of absurdist humor, non sequiturs, and is part of a subculture that is called Weird Twitter, and We Rate Dogs, a wholesome Twitter account that has kind of been turned into a sustainable media property and a fundraising vehicle for doggos all around. He also got into a little bit of a funny little controversy, but I don't think really that is important since it's kind of a nothing burger in the grand scheme of things, but it is funny if you do want to check it out. Fast forward to October 27, 2022, a man by the name of Elon Musk decided to buy Twitter for $44 billion, and initially had to try to back out of the deal in July 2022. But he had no choice, and he made the changes to the platform and called it X the Everything app. And it was by far the worst choice ever that he somehow managed to make Twitter even more worse than it already was. Because one of the changes that he ended up making was to very much change how the checkmark system actually ended up working. He threw the entirety of the system of the checkmarks out the window completely and all put it behind a subscription wall called Twitter Blue, where now you could just pay to have the checkmark for it, and it will end up boosting you into the Twitter algorithm, and at least for the top reply. Although most of these changes were more annoying and actually made the site unusable at times, it did boost a lot more of these gimmick accounts much further into the spotlight where they are now, and are kind of just part of the everyday Twitter experience. The first kind of accounts that I'll go over are purely the ones that are meant for engagement and kind of just showing viral things. Accounts like Internet Hall of Fame, Nostalgia Folder, images that make you feel pain, non-aesthetic things, dudes posting their W's, women's posting their W's, and respectful memes of the accounts you at least have seen once. Despite the type of content that they put out are mainly just purely in for the likes because they have just the one viral thing they at least have found, they can sometimes at least find interesting videos that most people end up not finding out for a while, or they have just been popular in for so long that they kind of end up circling back into the greater internet sphere. But it's also not just exclusive to the types of things where it's just viral internet stuff. It can even be for genres of things of like horror, where you can find it on like creepy.org, or ones about animals in like the great outdoors, like Nature is Amazing. Then there are the shitpost accounts. I think it's very much on the nose on what they do. They post a meme, they profit from it. Some of the accounts that you may have seen are the ones like Shitpostgate, Rock Solid, Hourly Shitpost, Shitpost 2077, or maybe even memes that require no context, like no context memes, everything out of context, no context humans, or you're just a guy that pumps a meme like it's nothing, like your typical local man. You could even go lower with the types of accounts that have to repost the same thing on the exact same day, like Ahoy Sailor, you made it to Friday, the Adventures of Tintin meme of what's today, the 15th, and even as of now, the Pymations FNAF thing of it's 5:59. Next are the actual gimmicks themselves. But like I said, most of these gimmick accounts have a lot more of a wider variety than you would end up leading to believe. You could find stuff that are more of like insane poses, rare images that AI can recreate, VLM Predator, the dude that was responsible for the if this guy was black or Asian meme, where you can even find ones that are more just dedicated to the whole bit and are just sticking the whole way through. Ones like Evil Doer, Year Progress Bar, and Satan, because of course he would be on Twitter. Like, what else did he's gotta do out there? I want to give a special mention to the Mr. Baseball Twitter account. I only found out about this account from a With a Y video, but the whole account is assumed to be this ARG about he owes a lot of debt and money to the equivalent of like the baseball mafia and basically want him dead. It's interesting because I don't think I've really seen an account like this before that has kind of at least got my attention. The account is still up as of right now, but I haven't really personally followed on what it's actually doing. I don't exactly know what's going on. Maybe Mr. Baseball is currently going on like a resurrection arc, then like, I really don't know, but suffice it to say, this account just pertained to interesting to me. Though this does help transition to the next kind of accounts that, I'll be honest, that they're not gimmick accounts in the traditional sense, but they're unique on their own, that they're kind of more of the akin to prolific users that have been on the block on Twitter before and aren't really afraid to show their character or at least to pretend to be one. Ones that fit the bill are like George_10G, who makes these very detailed and nice, cute latte art of people's profiles. Why this Twitter's most hated user and reply guy is probably the most stock standard prolific user out there currently. I literally have not only seen this dude to reply to everything that he has literally just sees, but now I usually also know him as just the dude that just likes Charlie Morningstar from Hasbin Hotel. Extreme Blitz is also another case of this because he also just kind of ends up doing the Twitter ball game and just knows what he's kind of doing. He's kind of also the guy that has probably done more promotion for the Dexter series as a whole when he's like literally just using constantly memes from that show. That or like something like Breaking Bad or like other like movies that he kind of just ends up finding himself having. Like, I'm pretty sure this guy is like single-handedly responsible for the Dokes meme that came popular because of it. Evil F Skeleton or Chumblings, although started off as like any other gimmick account before, managed to end up be popular enough that he kind of just gradually came to be a furry, and people are kind of just accepting him. Like, they just found it to be like a kind of a cool guy, despite him literally saying that nothing in his life is kind of like, you know, really that interesting, you know? Neb's good take, at least to me, has been known to just having these random high quality gifts that he has, and to be fair, they're really good. I don't know exactly what he uses to make them, but honestly, he kind of ends up doing it very well. Like, I kind of just go to him whenever I need like to find like an actual good gift. And by far, probably the most recognizable user, at least in Twitter history, is Kira Won't Miss. And if you're not familiar with that account, then probably good for you, because he was the one who was single-handedly responsible for the consensus of the worst tweet ever in Twitter history. Actually, let alone in internet history entirely. If you know exactly what he means in this sentence and can know the exact words to it, I am so sorry. If you want a user that at least has popped off in a lot more recenter times, I would say Hood Genius is kind of the best one that we got thus far. Hood Genius is an NBA Twitter account that ended up managing to get into a pretty funny beef with the US government. More specifically or not, the Homeland Security Twitter account. On October 17th, 2025, Homeland Security reposted a video from a TikTok account that showed a bunch of dudes standing in the field with text saying, "ICE were on our way, we're in the street, the cartel put a 50K bounty on y'all." This was assumed to be made in protest for the recent ICE enforcement that's been happening all over the US, and Homeland Security, they didn't like that, not one bit. And they ended up posting the following caption, "FAFO, if you threaten or lay your hands on our law enforcement officers, We will hunt you down and we will find you out really quickly. We'll see you soon, cowards. The OG TikTok of this is no longer available, but the original poster did react to what the Homeland Security was stating, and while he did say that yes, he was pictured in the clip, he was not responsible for creating the caption on the video, leading to a lot of people to just assume that Homeland Security just purposely did this to spread misinfo and to endanger everybody in the clip. And Hood Genius, being the good Samaritan that he is, would end up coming into the situation and would write the following: spreading misinformation, especially as the Department of Homeland Security, should cause for the abolishment of that said department. I mean, he's writing this scenario. It's kind of fucked that Homeland Security is like doing this anyways, just to like keep doing what they're doing. And I was not the only one. He ended up getting like about like 36k likes within like the 5 days that the post was up. And Homeland had to clap back, doubling down, saying that they ended up getting receipts, and would end up making the following tweet: this young man posted violent threats of murder against our law enforcement. He then deleted it when he was called out and attempted to deny all wrongdoings. We have the receipts, and the internet is forever. The will for ignorance and the intentional blindness by leading Democrats to the massive increase in violent rhetoric against our agents due to their actions is both disgusting and disappointing. Violence against our agents and officers must stop. This was a surprise to Hood Genius, not because that Homeland Security was doing anything to make themselves look better in this situation, but it was more as the fact that they were calling Hood Genius a leading Democrat, and he took that shit and ran the Twitter game on them so hard that he ended up eventually getting endorsed by the actual Democrats. Like, the official Democrats Twitter account follows him, and are there he ended up running a campaign for Zohran Mamdani, which, if you at least have saw the election from that, he won to be the mayor of New York. And Homeland Security would have to reply back in like a tongue-in-cheeky way to try and like settle down the beef, saying in one of his tweets like, "We hear you no ball," which I took as them just having to back out of the whole thing. But you're not going to be like Opera GX in this situation, man. Like, you can't just like end up having to say, "Oh yeah, no, hey guys, we're cool, you know, haha, like, you know, he knows ball, we get it, but on the joke." Like, no, I don't want to identify you as some like character behind the Homeland Security Twitter account. Like, I do not want that to be the case. Okay, so there is some like appeal into most of these Twitter accounts. What's the point in following them aside from just the obvious? And that's where I explored a little bit more into most of these. On the rares and commons of days, you'll end up finding that a Gimmick account like these might tend to crash out just like a little bit, or just having to sell the account altogether. We'll get to the crash outs like in a little bit of a moment, but one instance of account that was sold, at least to a much more lower degree, was the Bob the Minion account. And it had all the green flags to be a pretty decent account just to roleplay as like Bob the Minion. And the original guy had to sell the account to a guy in crypto and started promoting like, you know, Bob the Minion coin. And everybody else knew exactly what was going to happen, because as soon as that shit got posted, everybody just dropped him like he was. Though when the Gimmick account actually ends up getting sold, you could very much tell that the quality ends up going down, at least within the crypto case. But another case they also ended up finding out was the whole thing that happened to Wade.archive and Lost Memes Archive, because both of these accounts are at least ran by the same person, and when they ended up making some changes to the account, like their profile, the banner, and the way they were posting, a lot of people had to allege that they just sold the account, like somebody just sold the account for like something else. And in a shocking twist, they actually didn't sell the account, like at all. The owner of these accounts ended up having to make a statement that's saying that the accounts didn't get sold, and that the reason for the sudden change was due to a wave of copyright claims that put Wave.archive in some jeopardy. This honestly does make sense and is actually very understandable. Copyright nowadays is such a bitch to get a handle on, so I don't blame him for not wanting to post much of the actual music onto the Twitter platform, and I understand why he had to make much more of the switch to like other things of content, but he probably should have at least attempted to maybe like tell people at least of a heads up that like, hey, we're going to have to make some changes, you're probably not going to like this, and you're probably going to unfollow me, but like, I'm just gonna let you head up now before anything else happens. Because as soon as like the Wave.archive account was allegedly sold, most people end up deciding to take it upon themselves to continue where the original left off. And there are about 3 other Wave.archive accounts that are also attempting to do the exact same thing. Most of them end up running to the exact situation where the original ended up having. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's about 3 of them, and most of them end up having to quit or move on to like a different Twitter account entirely. And I think there's only like about like 1 Lost Meme Archive account that at least, is still around, but I don't think it's posting anything else like anymore. Down from the future here, there's a lot more to the Wave archive account than I was originally intending to do, because there was a lot more than I originally had within the actual recording, because apparently they not only ended up having to do an actual rebrand of like becoming just design slop, but even they got community noted on one of their posts very much saying that the user stole/bought the account of Wave Archive and changed the name and deleted all the posts. He tried to fool everyone by saying that he didn't stole the account just to change everything right after. In fact, when you try to search out the Wave Archive username, it literally ends up appearing as the top one of Design Slop, which is essentially just the one that was the original, and there have been a lot more Wave Archive accounts that have been made than like the two that I at least have, though I think there's still only like one Lost Meme Archive account. And now a lot of people are also speculating the same thing that's going to be happening with Lost Meme Archive, because there are also some posts that were just originally there, but they're also very much gone within the wind, and they're just no longer up. Which makes it confusing as to why delete so many of the posts that were originally from like Lost Meme Archive if Wave Archive was like the one in like the most amount of jeopardy. To be honest, I don't know exactly which one's which, or whether or not they actually sold the account, or it was like taken by somebody else, or that they stole it. Either way, this is something I did not expect to be happening within like the Wave Archive thing. I thought it was gonna be like a little bit more done, but there's some little tidbits that I very much was about to almost kind of miss out on. So glad I kind of caught it in time. On to crash outs. One account that at least was a little bit known to at least crash out and had been suffering from the crash out ever since was the Santa Decides Twitter account. The whole shtick of it was that they would end up picking just random celebs or public figures to put them onto the nice or naughty list, including if they end up ever getting a gift. It went on for a good while until July 6, 2021, where they would end up tweeting that trans people are on the naughty list. I don't think I really need to tell you exactly how that went, but suffice it to say, everybody hated it and they wanted answers. This was at least surprising to most people that were at least following the account at that time, because the account was actually very pro-LGBTQ in some of their tweets, even having to boost a shout out to one of their friends who was coming out. When the tweet was made, they locked down the account, and when they finally went public again, they made a tweet longer having to explain that the reason behind the trans posts was because it was a prank, and they wanted to get this trending on Twitter, which it did. It hit like the number 3 spot. And of course, everybody hated it, and their traction would just eventually have to fizzle out, as the account would just became a right-wing grifter account. It's unknown as to where the whole thing in the beginning and where it's like kind of, where you end up finding where the end of the rope actually is, but I don't think that really matters as of now, because the account just ends up posting just things of like AI Santa and their just love of Trump and guns. Oh, I forgot I put this in here. I was debating on whether or not I wanted to include this specific user, because they're more in line of being a prolific user, but they have such a history on crash outs on multiple occasions that to me, it's the definition of a Twitter user Greek tragedy in the worst way possible, where no one is laughing, everybody is kind of just seeing the events unfold before their eyes. If you're familiar with the name and the user of Fallen Chungus, then 1, I pray for you that you ever had to hear the name in the first place, and 2, are probably also confused as to the current status of Fallen Chungus, since it got split into like 3 different types of people, and almost nobody kind of just knows what the hell's even going on. I'm not going to go into like the more huger and much more lengthier details about Falling Chungus, because that's a lot even for this video. So if you want to know the full history, go watch Turkey Ton's video that goes over it. But for the sake of me and you, Fallen Chungus is the man responsible for the Pinhead comics, and is the one that was responsible for the bro is visiting his friend meme. In 2024, he became embroiled in allegations about his personal behavior and a self-suicide related incident, having him to lead to announce a retreat from social media and his webcomic creation. The result was that the account having to be under new management, promising that the new guy in charge wouldn't be like the previous guy, with some users having to call him Liquid Chungus, in reference to Liquid Chris, a Chris Chan impersonator. There was also a alleged hacker that took control of one of Fallen Chungus' accounts, Stats Mojo, but it was confusing on whether or not that it was the real Chungus or it was actually the hacker. I'll be honest, there's almost no point in trying to revive the Fallen Chungus name, nor even the account itself, because it's currently on that rise of doing it again right now, and it's been through the ringer so much and through so many times that people are kind kind of just treating it as the equivalent of wearing the Sonic medallion or having a literal curse being placed upon you, whoever runs this account. Speaking of curses, there was a time where main Gimmick accounts were actually exposed for being sellouts or having to be ran by the same person. Not that this is a shock to most people. In fact, you may remember that Wave Media Archive and Lost Meme Archive were basically ran by the same person, and even one other user itself that was mentioned, at least in the shitpost category, Rock Solid, owns another account called Insane Cope. The reason I'm mentioning this was the time that Stake literally took over Twitter. Stake is a gambling and casino site that is the backing partner of the streaming platform Kick. They had a promotion frenzy on the site, having to buy or having to pay several big accounts to have their clips or videos be posted under the condition that they have a Stake watermark on the video, so that people would be funneling into their site for traction. This, as you might guess, made people upset, and some wanted to get to the bottom of how this ended up happening. It then came in with an account called Fuck Stake, who was the only account that was actually anti-stake and very much didn't have any watermark under any of their posts. A Gimmick account by the name of Unsponsorship ended up noticing that they were being blocked by large accounts, and it was also being slowly shown that the Fuck Stake account were following accounts that were working or had Stake watermarks on their posts. An enter of another account, and the worst of Twitter account, who was the actual person who ended up discovering that the Discord link in Fuckstake's bio led them to a server where several of the Stake partners were in, and a user by the name of Herkits would be revealed to have been the owner of the Fuckstake account, also be the owner of multiple other accounts, like Liminal Spaces, Good Reddit, Wild Discord, Hoodie Clips, and much more. The reason of this is honestly very simple, because Stake very much just wanted to get more eyes on them, regardless of how they end up getting it. Any attention to them is good attention, and they are very much playing by the Twitter game. It worked out for them a lot, because it is essentially kind of almost a foolproof thing of having to make the thing that people hate to be funneled in a lot more by having multiple other people end up being run by the same person. Hell, this wasn't even like the most elaborate thing. It was actually pretty much clear from the get-go, because Herkits outright confessed to owning these accounts and was just waiting on for someone to see if they would end up like, catching on to the whole thing. And he would have almost done like an entire rebrand on Twitter if not for Elon having to do something good for once, as he would tweet around this time warning users that buying larger follower accounts and using them to push scans would ban them permanently, and literally displayed Herkits' Discord bio showing all the accounts he owned as the example. In the end, all the accounts he owned got banned, and nothing came from Herkits ever, and Stake ended up getting left behind, and most people end up never seeing like anything under their watermark ever again. To know this much about most of these accounts is concerning, but I thought I'd be at least making it for a good video, as I often wondered the existence of these accounts, and I thought it'd be very simple, but there are at least a little bit of layers that you often see or do not see. Gimmick accounts at least occupy any live internet spaces, and whether or not you end up finding them interesting within the specific bit that they'll commit, or one that they could not commit and are just waiting to see like the whole train wreck of it all, they became much more notable over time that they do at least make the Twitter experience at least that a little bit tolerable. Even if when they have to pay for a Twitter blue checkmark, it's basically equivalent to having enough money to buy a McDonald's meal. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you want more videos like these, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!